Hey everybody, it's Adrian from Zanza's Toys. I know this is a weird year and everybody's Halloween plans are probably much different than you expected them to be, but doesn't mean you can't make your own fun, right? Today we're going to be talking about making a haunted book. So I had intended this to be 1/18 scale. It's really a little bit big for that, so it's really probably more like 1/12. So if your 6-inch figures or maybe your Barbies are getting into some occult shenanigans, this is just the perfect thing. It's a book, but there's something inside and it wants out. If I press down on the bookmark, we can see a hand presses against the surface, trying to make its way out. So let's look at how it goes together. Okay, so here I have all the parts I'll need. I have a book exterior, pages, a frame, a plate, a pusher, the hand itself, and a tiny peg. So one thing you want to be careful of is this frame is going to have, I recommend printing it like this with that gap pointed up. So that's definitely the way you want to print it, but that means you might get some elephant foot along this edge. And definitely make sure you clean that up because this edge is going to be what we glue some balloon to. And if you've got elephant's foot, it'll there's a good chance it can cut through the balloon. It'll be sharp. It might cut through the latex, and your book won't last as long as it might otherwise. So I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit. Oh yeah, so the way this all fits together is this is gonna fit in like that, kind of like an embroidery hoop with the rubber on the front. This part rides in that gap like that, so it can go up and down. And then this part just drops in and holds the hand like that, basically like that. And the way that works is we look at it from the side. When the bookmark is up, these parts sit like this, and the plate is lower. But when you push the bookmark in, it forces the plate upwards, pushing the hand against the rubber as whatever's inside tries to get out. I've also painted these parts a little bit. So I painted the pages to have a nice white paper-like color. I painted the pusher to have a red bookmark. I could have just printed this out of a different color plastic, and if I was going to make a bunch of these, I'd probably do that. I'd just set up a plate with a bunch of these parts and print them in a different color. But I made one plate with all the parts, so it's all in brown, and I wanted that to have a little splash of color. And I also added some gold to the book exterior just for fun. This you could paint after the fact. If you paint these parts, you'll definitely want to do that before you assemble, so you might as well do all the painting before assembly. Okay, and so we'll also need a balloon. So I'm going to use a red one. And what I'm going to use is the neck of the balloon because it's the flattest part. So I'm just going to cut that off, and I'll cut this off, and I'll run scissors through. And now I have a nice sheet of stretchy latex in a bright color, which is great. So choose whatever color you want. I think red is kind of nice. So I'm going to put all the other parts aside for a minute. And the first thing we're going to do is glue our latex onto our frame piece on the opposite side from the gap. So here's the gap. And this is going to go on the opposite side. First thing we're going to do is glue on our rubber. So to do that, I'm not going to try to glue this all at once. What I'm going to do instead is put a little bit of super glue along one edge here. So just along one edge. And I'm going to hold that as it sets up. The reason I'm just doing one edge is because I want this to be taut. And the best way to get this to be taut is to glue one edge, let it get nice and firm, and then that'll give me something to pull against as we affix the other 3 edges with a little bit more super glue. And that'll give us a nice drum-like, taut, and flat surface. So that sets up pretty quick. This seems pretty good. So now I'm going to peel it back and add some super glue to the other 3 edges. This tube is really leaky, so I'm just going to tamp off the extra. And now I'm going to stretch this out a little bit and wrap it around. And let that also set up. End result should be something nice and flat and stretchy for the hand to work against. I have a lot of extra balloon material here, and that's totally fine. We're going to cut that down in a minute. But I'm going to let that fully set up. So I have an opportunity to leave this alone for a minute, so I'm going to leave that alone for a minute. And while that's setting up, let's get the plate and hand ready. So you could just glue it directly. It includes these holes, though, to accommodate a peg to help it align it just right. I'll take a little super glue, drop there, and drop this in to there. There we go. And then for the hand, a little bit there. And there we go. Okay, so there's our finished pusher plate and hand. Okay, now this seems pretty firm. So what I'm going to do is cut away the excess. So I'm going to deliberately not be too close. I'm going to leave some extra rubber around the edge, and that's totally fine. Because that's actually, if anything, it's going to give us a more secure and better looking result if we have a little extra rubber. And I'll show you why that is in just a second. Do that. And what we're going to do is now take the pages and we're going to push this through from the underside. So we'll go through like that, and you'll see all that extra rubber gets tucked away, just like an embroidery hoop, and gives us a nice, neat presentation. If we had less rubber, it might come out of this and flail around. So having a little extra there is totally great. So now I'm ready to actually glue these 2 things together. So I'm going to just, I'm going to be very careful that these 2 gaps line up. We want this to end up like that with this gap aligned so that our bookmark can ride in that gap. Okay. So I'm just going to put a little super glue on all 4 sides here. Use a little paper towel to kind of spread it out a little bit so it's not dripping everywhere. And I'm going to push it in from the underside. So from the bottom of what will be the bottom of the book. Okay. There we go. And now we have the front of the book. So all that's left is to glue these 2 parts together with these parts inside. I'm also going to just add a little bit to the corners here and let some super glue kind of soak in through capillary action. Get a nice bond between these 2 parts. Should be okay because we're going to end up gluing essentially both of these down to the bottom of this surface, but it never hurts, right? I do want to check and make sure that this surface here is nice and flat. So if you had any schmutz from the printing process, just grab a nice flat file and give it a little sanding. So now we're ready for the final assembly. So I'm going to drop this in, just drop it in. It's not affixed or attached in any way, it just floats. So I'm going to make sure that I want, you can definitely change this if you want, but I want the hand to be facing up. So I'm going to make sure I put it in like this, because that gap for the bookmark is going to be the top of the book. So I'll drop it in. I'll take the bookmark and place it in that gap. And now what I want to do is add some super glue. So I'm going to put some super glue on this side of the book exterior. And then I'm going to put it on 3 of the 4 edges of the pages. So at the bottom edge and the right and left. I'm going to avoid putting any at the top, though, because I don't want any risk of gluing the bookmark mechanism. So get all that. And I find it easiest to hold this whole assembly while you, with one hand upside down like that, and then add the book exterior like so. And make sure it's nicely aligned. I'm going to just hold that for a little bit, and there we go. It's one haunted book. And if we press down, we get something trying to get out. So, press down, and a hand tries to get out. That's about it. I hope you all enjoyed watching that, and that everybody has a safe and fun Halloween despite COVID. If you want to get the files and make one of these for yourself, just check the links below. And if you want to see more videos like this on toy design, toy making at home, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much. See you next time.